Welcome to the Grace and Form podcast, your backstage pass to the world of movement and the people and stories that shape it. Hi, Indy.
Hello, Sassy.
This is our final episode of season 2 of the Grace and Form podcast, and we brainstormed for a while thinking who would be the perfect guest to wrap this up. How do we want to end this season? And one thing we both felt was that we have learned so much from our guests, particularly the pieces of advice that they've given us. And so we thought it would be really fun to open it up to our community of friends and also chat together about some of the pieces of advice that we have received along the way that have really landed. And so we could end this season just sharing it all. You might want a note paper and pen for this one so you can get all the info in. But yeah, we just thought we'd share some things we've learned and the things that have really helped us.
Yeah, I feel like we've really, had some wonderful guests on the podcast and continue to learn from everyone around us and on the podcast. And we thought we would just share some of our advice as well, or things that we've learned and been told. But yeah, it's been like a really lovely season, and we're so excited to present this last episode, but also really excited for our next season that's going to be coming up soon too. We're gearing up for it. Sassy will be arriving in New York City on Friday for me, and we're going to start chipping away at our podcast. It's our 3rd season, I think, right?
Yeah, 3rd season. We're so excited about it. We've got a really fun new concept coming to you guys. So yeah, while you're listening to this, Indy and I will be in the trenches planning, recording, and speaking to some amazing guests.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Sass, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay, so the first piece of advice that I've received, and I think it's one that is a daily practice for me to continue to embed in my life, is this idea that we need to release the idea that things could have been any other way. There's no point in wondering, what if it should have been like this? If I'd done this, it would have been like this. I'm someone who can sit a lot in the ifs and should haves and what if this happened? And it just exists in a memory, like a recollection of things, of ways things could have gone. And ultimately it can bring so much anxiety into a life, kind of separate you from the present moment that you're living in and how it's actually turned out. So for me, it's something that really grounds me when I get into this sort of like type A, if I'd done this, if I hadn't said that, and allows me to breathe a bit deeper in the knowing that it's this way and that's fine, and you just got to move through it. And sometimes the way that things turn out are uncomfortable, and sometimes it's brilliant and there's magic in it. But yeah, stopping the overwhelming thoughts that can come in about the way things could have turned out, and like letting that go. And for me, it's so important that sometimes we redirect those thoughts, so
Absolutely.
you can't always go, I don't want to think that. But I think it's so important to remember that the way that we speak to ourselves and the thoughts that land in our brain create the environment of our lives. And you can't often shut out those thoughts, but you do have the power to redirect them. So remembering the magic in the moment, or going, I know that I feel that way, but actually I don't need to think on it any longer. It's okay, and move on. So for me, that comes with the idea, releasing the idea it could have been any other way, and also redirecting the thoughts into something much more positive or grounded is something that has helped me hugely in my day-to-day.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's such wonderful advice and good for me to remember as well. I'm curious, is there anything that you, like an example that you could give that you were able to use this advice in recently?
Yeah, I think a good example, or the one that's just landed on me now, that I was almost trying to search for another one because this one's more uncomfortable to share, was I had a situation between 2 friends where I was trying to be in the middle because I love two people equally, but I hadn't communicated very well. And I felt terrible because I knew I could have communicated some things much better, therefore not making either person feel like I didn't love them and I didn't want to spend time with them. And I had just done it wrong. My heart was in the right place, but the way that I had done it was I could have done it better. And I realized that. And I just was sitting there with this anxiety and the feelings of like just that kind of icky, horrible feeling when you know you could have done something better. And for me, I just had to keep on bringing those thoughts in because it was sitting in me for so long and going, I'm a good friend and now I know I can do better. And
Absolutely.
different ways that it would come into my mind and I would almost bring it in and it would feel harsh, and the way I would turn the thought, I would soften it. And I do that as well all the time when I feel a little bit icky in my body. There's always moments, as much as I've nurtured like a relationship with my body where I love it and I feel such deep appreciation for it. I'll sometimes look in the mirror, particularly on a day like today where I'm getting my period and not feeling great, and I'll see all the things that I wish were a little bit more like this, a little bit more like that. That is the perfect moment for me to use this formula of letting the thoughts come in because I can't block it, but changing the narrative around it and finding the things that I absolutely love and I appreciate so much about my body. And it just means that the energy at the end of that kind of conversation with myself has changed.
Absolutely. Well,
What
thank you for
about you?
sharing, because I love that. It's so nice to
Aw.
hear. Such a good reminder. For me, I would say for my first piece of advice, I think Sassy and I are both going to share 3, by the way, to our
Yeah.
listeners. So my first piece of advice that I got, probably, I think I've also said it on this podcast, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's just something that's really helped me in my life as a dancer, as a person. I am very easy to take on emotions around me. Like I feel for people very deeply when they're feeling sad or angry or frustrated, and I want to help, but then I also sometimes take it on a bit, and that also goes for like really negative criticisms or like negative feelings that people are having. So an advice that I got from actually coach here at New York City Ballet, Glenn Keenan, was to put on a raincoat when you are in your life, like a bubble. It could be a bubble or it could be a raincoat. We use the raincoat analogy. And when people are kind of maybe oversharing or offloading a little bit too much, maybe negativity, for me, it's really easy for me to get really sad and feel the negativity very intensely, and then it kind of hijacks my body and my mind, and that's my own. I have to work on that. But this advice really helped me in that way. So like if I was getting criticized like with 10 corrections in a rehearsal, which I needed, but I didn't want to take on the energy and feel like I was such a horrible dancer, I'd keep my raincoat on and I'd let all of that negativity just dribble off me and, maybe take the advice, but don't put on that negativity on you, and don't take, the extra that is from another person's energy. You never know what someone's going through in their day to day. And, on the street, maybe someone doesn't smile at you when you smile back. Don't take that on. Maybe they're going through something really intense. You don't know. And, it's not always nice to receive an empty face when you smile at someone, but, you can't control that. And I think that advice really helped me in the ballet world, especially, and also in my life, just putting on my raincoat and just when you receive something that maybe is not necessary to take it on in your day, just imagine those raindrops, those emotions, those feedbacks, the, harshness of others just dribbling off your raincoat. And that really helped.
I remember you telling me this piece of advice before, and the when it came back to me was when you said the word dripple, because I remember
because I made that word.
And we were like, is this a real word, drippling off? And I still don't
It's
know.
not, right?
I have no clue, but we will find out, you and I, after this episode. But if it's not, it is now. So
I realized when I was saying it too, I was like, wait a minute. Again, I've used this word triple and I don't know if it's,
but I know it sums up the feeling. And the bubble analogy, like you say, is like nobody can burst your bubble. It just bounces right off. And I think the raincoat one's really beautiful because you can just have that visualization and nothing kind of goes through it. It's just, it's there and it goes off. And I love that. And I think it's super helpful, even if it's just, a friend or a loved one who calls you when they're stressed and anxious.
Yeah.
And if you're an empathetic person, then you're going to take that on. Let's just create all the words today. Actually, on words, my next piece of advice is listen more than you speak. And this is one that I feel is really coming at me at the moment, because I have been in lots of rooms recently full of people that I don't know, and getting to meet some amazing, lovely new humans, both personally and on the work side. And I find that it's so easy, or at least for me, when I'm trying to connect to someone, to want to share, because I think that that's going to help me connect with them. And historically, I've kind of walked away going, have I just told them so much about me and I know nothing about them? And sometimes it feels like it's a way to keep the conversation alive. You know, you're just bringing little anecdotes into, from your day in. But listen more than you speak. Ask the questions and listen, because there is so much more learning to be done. And for me, this is a pivot, because I think that my intention's always just to try and make this person I'm speaking to feel comfortable, feel like they're getting to know me, trying to also ignite some sort of conversation and connection. But actually, sometimes more pause, more silence opens the doors for them to be able to share more. So listen more than you
Absolutely.
speak.
I think that's like such an incredible piece of advice, and just something to be reminded of pretty much constantly. I know from our experience that we've talked about this a lot, like when you're speaking to someone and then you have in your mind something you want to tell them, and then maybe instead of going ahead and telling them right away and interrupting, or or trying to connect, you silence it, and then you're like, wow, I've just learned so much more. And I've also been able to silence it and know that it's okay. I'll hopefully remember it later. Like, I know for me, I feel like with this piece of advice, I try to take it on as much as possible too, because my fear is that I'm going to forget what I really, really wanted to tell somebody. And if you can just like silence that, like you say, I feel like it's so much more valuable. It's just you really make a connection with somebody when you actually listen. And I think others can tell too. You know, we speak to each other and we really listen. We can tell when one or the other is not really listening, like we're checking something or we're maybe thinking of something else. And so, yeah, that listening is really, I love that you mentioned that, because I think that that's such an important thing in a relationship for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up.
Okay, next up, let's see. Okay, my next piece of advice is from my godmother, Karen Mervis, and Sassy loves this piece of advice too.
And I love Karen. She's like
And you
full
love
of all
Karen.
the wise words. Really, we should have asked her to do all of them, because she has the best quotes
Yes.
and little nuggets. And this is one
She
of them.
really does. Yeah, this is one of them. She always tells me, don't worry twice. And this really is a very special thing to take on in your day to day. Specifically for her, how she would explain it is that her husband, Barry, also kind of like my father, he has been dealing with cancer for many, 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 many years. And so for her going into the office and, finding out what stage it's at, or what is the next step, or what's the next cure, or what's the next vitamin he has to take, treatment, exactly. Um, it's very worrisome, and it's so stressful, and it's like the love of her life. She wants him to be better. He's fought this cancer, I think, for 15 years, so he's doing an amazing job, and his body is really fighting, and they found really great ways to continue fighting this. Anyways, why she says don't worry twice is because she could worry so much about her husband, as well as so many things in the world. But she doesn't worry twice because it causes extra anxiety. And so worry when the person tells you you need to worry. For example, I don't know if this makes sense, but this is kind of what she explained to me. If you go into the office and you're already worrying, you already have anxiety, and then you're going to be extra worrisome when they tell you what the protocol is or whatever. So go into the office with a positive outlook, an open mind, hoping for the best, which I know can be really hard, especially in her circumstance. And then worry when you have to worry. And so, like, this also is something that we can do in our day to day. Don't worry about what someone else is thinking of you. You don't know what they're thinking of you, right? That's how I take it on, at least when I'm performing, for example, and my coach is watching me at the front. I'm going to just go ahead and be as present as I possibly can, enjoy it, and then when they tell me there's something that I need to correct, then I can worry about it. So don't worry twice. Don't put that anxiety on you twice. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sassy, you tell me if there's like a better way to explain it, because I do feel like it's such a special thing that she shared with us.
It is, and it's in her specific scenario, and this is why it made such a huge impact on me when she said it, was as Indy explains, and she said it in such a beautiful, positive way. Like, don't worry twice. There's no reason for me to worry about something that hasn't happened yet. Like, what a waste of my life. And life is so precious. And when she said that, she was giving me advice on something pretty like it was a relationship problem. And she was saying it as it relates to a much deeper and more painful experience. And so to hear that, as she told it, and she told it also with the addition of, don't make a 5 a 10. So if something's happened in your life that's a 5, keep it a 5. And don't blow it out of proportion. And all these things, I think, just come back to making sure that you don't take up your life with worrying about things that haven't happened, and going back to that first thing, like that the idea that it might be a different way, and just making things up in your mind. So wait until you know, and when you know, you'll deal with it. And I think that's
exactly
a great sentiment. And I guess it also comes into my final piece of advice, which is anchor in the body when the mind spirals. For me, the most helpful thing, and it is absolutely an easier thing you can tap into if you have a connection to dance because you have an understanding of your body, is feet on the, feel your feet on the floor. Feel your feet, and like from the inside, like if you're just sitting here right now and you can actually just feel your feet existing in space, stand into the ground and feel your feet. Other things that can help is like naming things that you see in the room. So like 5 things that you can see. Slowing your breath, almost the hardest one to do, and after you've kind of grounded yourself. But when your mind spirals, anchor in your body.
I love that one so much. And it's funny that you say this one, because actually someone that I've met recently was explaining to me that a way to calm your anxiety and from going into a bit of a panic attack is by recognizing things in your space. And I've started to do it, and I'm really loving this feeling of like saying, here is the light bulb, there's the door, here's the carpet. Just super simple when you're feeling like you're spiraling a little bit. And another thing that came to mind when you said this was Sassy and I went to Australia, as we've mentioned many times on this podcast, because it was our favorite trip ever. But we were having a lot of anxiety flying because we were having a lot of motion sickness. We were going on a lot of boats. We got a million ginger chews, like everything that you could do for seasickness or nausea or anything. Anyways, something that Sassy told me in the plane, which really helped both of us, was to push down in your feet when you're on the plane and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling that turbulence or it's going up and down. You push down. And I feel like that's something that's super helpful because you really get to feel grounded. You feel the earth, even if it's in the sky.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just really helpful. So I'm happy that you're reminding me of this because I had my first show today on the New York City Ballet stage, and I was waking up feeling a little bit anxious. And so I'm going to be reminded, I'm going to ground myself. And this advice goes into my last advice too really well, because my last piece of advice is trust your gut.
Yes.
And that one I've been told by many people, but most recently have really found ways to honor it truly and not be afraid of it, or not be afraid to honor it and speak up. Because I feel like in the past I've doubted my gut just because I really have fear in making decisions, because then once I've made the decision, then I can't go the other way sometimes. So it's very scary for me to decide things. And, whether it be being in a relationship or being in a workplace or having a certain job or anything like this. And so trusting your gut is something that's really helped me a lot, especially in this past year, because you can feel your gut. And I think once you tune in to that feeling, it can really help you make decisions. And it can be super simple decisions, or it could be real big life-changing decisions. And if you can feel and sit with yourself for a little bit and see and listen to your body, it's going to tell you and you're going to know. And it might be, an uncomfortable feeling. It might be nausea, anxiety, a little bit of shakiness, all these things. Or it might be as simple as like you have your tummy that's a little bit flipped upside down because you know that you have to do something scary and you're avoiding it a little bit. And for me, that was definitely a big one. And it really has helped me a lot to trust my gut. And it's easier said than done. This is like such a simple thing to say, trust your gut. You got to trust your gut. But I really feel like if you can try to have a little bit more intention of meditating in your body and seeing where it arises, the gut feeling, and how it arises, then you can really start tuning in to that gut even easier when you have to make decisions. Same. And yeah, it's okay to also make mistakes. I know we're not going on to a fourth, but I feel like from the gut, like you're saying, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's a trial and error, like Sassy is saying. And I do feel like, I'm 32. I've only started really paying attention to this starting in my 30s, 31 getting a little bit better, and now just turned 32 feeling a little bit more confident about it. Still gonna have problems probably and not listen to it by accident or because I don't want to, because I'm like, no, don't. Yes, it's not always convenient, but absolutely just, I think, take the chance to fail and fall like we've done in the past episodes. We've fallen. We've talked about falling. We've had some episodes about mishaps on the stage. But, taking those chances, it allows you to learn, grow, and maybe it allows you to reach something even more spectacular that you didn't even think you were capable of. So take those chances, take those falls, and yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to hear all the advice that we have from our guests that are going to be on this episode. Yeah, we're so excited for season 3, and we're just so appreciative that you listen to all of our, banter, our silly banter between Sassy and I, but also that we're able to bring some wonderful people to your ears. And we hope that you've enjoyed it, and send any questions or comments or any desires of guests that you would like for season 3 or 4 or 5 or anything. We're so open to that, and we're so excited to get back to you guys. Okay, great. Love that. I'm so sorry. Did you?
This podcast is an extension of our app, Grace and Floor, where we bring ballet classes and ballet-inspired movement practices to you from beginner to pro, so everybody and everybody can experience our love of dance in their own home.
Absolutely. And we want to share everything that makes us feel amazing with you, and you don't even need a studio. And that's what's so wonderful about it. You can feel good anywhere.
So download the app, get a 7-day free trial, come move with me and Indy and some of our wonderful guests and incredible teachers.
We can't wait to see you.
First, we hear from Wendy Whelan. This is an excerpt from season 1, episode 1, and this advice has stayed with me.
Energy produces energy. So an action will produce more action. You creating the energy and the action will create your own path, or whatever way it is. If your energy is dark and down, that's going to create more of that. So energy producing energy. Someone taught me that once, and I've been able to, really see that manifesting around me. It's about dancing. It's like, well, if you want energy, go dance. So if you want to, be ready for rehearsals, take class. I didn't have the problem, but the other person did.
Yeah.
But I see it in every which way possible.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
you
say
take
that.
action, and then the next card will flip for you, and then you have to start.
I absolutely love this advice from Sarah Mearns.
No is a complete sentence. And I think women, we always have to feel like we have to explain ourselves and always have to have a reason that we're doing something or we're not doing something in any situation. And men and guys, they don't ever explain themselves, ever. And we always want to be yes, we always want to please people, right?
Totally.
Just say no, and that's good enough.
Oh, I love that. Then I texted my friend Ashton Edwards.
Hey, Indiana. You asked me for one piece of advice that I've received, and that was the great advice from me, Carla Corbis, last year when I was working on the role Aurora. She told me not to try to be soft, but to believe that I am. And since then, implementing that into my life, I have lost the effort to try to be anything that I'm not, and have gone forth with the belief in myself that I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be right now.
Hearing from Megan Fairchild, a piece of advice that has stayed with her.
Someone once told me that I should trust myself I'm making the right choices. And I think that's always a really nice thing to hear, because I think we all just assume that we should be doing better or we should be doing something differently and second guessing ourselves. And it's kind of like really freeing to realize, oh, my ideas and my choices about life are good enough, and I need to trust my instincts.
Next, we're hearing from Katherine Barkman, first soloist, San Francisco Ballet.
One amazing piece of advice I was given to me by Julie Kent a couple years ago. And she said to me, don't go on stage with all of your answers ready. And I think at the young age that I was at the time, it really affected me, because I think as dancers, we tend to want to control things and have a plan in place. But the reality is, if you go on stage knowing exactly what you're going to do and with all of your answers ready, then you're kind of not present to the magic that can happen from spontaneity and from being completely present to what other people are doing on stage, where the music's taking you, and just things that happen naturally rather than having them happen in a forced way or in a planned way. And I think ways that I implement that are both technically but also emotionally, and I always try to go on stage or even go into rehearsal with a spirit of openness and curiosity rather than control, which is really hard to do. And I still struggle with it, but I always keep that little nugget of wisdom in the back of my head, because I think it's really important, and it keeps you fresh and curious and creative rather than in a state of, control and needing to know everything before it's available. So it's a wonderful piece of advice.
We loved speaking to Gillian Murphy. She shared so many wonderful pieces of wisdom, and this is a piece of advice that has really helped her in those pre-stage moments.
If I do feel like I'm spiraling, coming up with like worst case scenarios before a show, which of course,
Happens.
anyone with a brain is gonna go there, like, of course, and all things can happen in that. But I guess a key to my success in my career was embracing that yes, anything could happen, and so maybe good things could happen, and not to. I feel like now I'm starting to think if I just sort of gaslit myself a little bit, because if I was thinking like negative things, I'd be like, nope, that's not even a thing. Or I would just come up with like an instant solution of like,
Totally.
I'll just get up off the floor
Yep.
and keep going. I've definitely had like major mind control in terms of trying to remain optimistic.
I think this next piece of advice from Tamara Rojo is essential, because it just helps make you a much more well-rounded person within the art form, not just a dancer, which I think is a really, really beautiful sentiment, and gives you much stronger gear to be able to go out into the world during your dance career and after.
Know the art form. I know that when you are training, you're so focused on your task and on your skill set, and that's necessary. Like I said before, we are a trade that has to be learned by practice. So I understand that takes a lot of time and mental and physical and emotional energy. At the same time, know the art form so that you have perspective and that you don't feel trapped or you don't feel drowning because you think, this is the one place I want to belong to, and that doesn't happen. Because when you look back in history, so many great artists didn't succeed in their first trial, and they became very successful because of that failure.
This episode of the Grace Informed podcast is sponsored by a wonderful donor who wants to shine a light on some of the most impactful dance and art charities in the world. It's a mission that's close to our heart. Indiana herself has performed numerous times at NDI with the incredible Daniel Ulbrich, who has a huge impact on this incredible institute. She's seen firsthand the incredible impact the work has on young dancers and their communities. If you'd like to support the Dream Project, you can donate at nationaldance.org. Every contribution helps keep the joy of dance accessible to every child.
Gonzalo Garcia gives us 3 pieces of advice for young dancers just starting out in their careers or dancers auditioning, and they are 3 little nuggets that I try to live by in my day-to-day life, in my dance journey, and in my life.
I think a lot about this, especially now that I'm gonna audition and to find. I will say, I think one good piece of mind is to have patience with themselves. Patience is an important skill to develop that I think dancers is very hard to develop. And then I would um, advise them to stay open-minded and watch and listen. It's super important. And then I would say that find the things that you're good at or that you think that you're good at and the skills, and concentrate on developing your own voice, and don't spend so much time on trying to develop the voice that other voices. It's like learn from other voices, but spend time developing your own voice and who you are and what you might have to bring to the table.
This last piece of advice that Gonzalo Garcia offers is something that I really, really want to highlight for our listeners and anyone starting out dance or continuing their journey in dance, because I think it is really one of the most essential things that you can do to just hone your craft, be your best self, and to just try not to always compare to others. I think using the inspiration from others onto your own craft is a wonderful thing, and taking inspiration and being a better dancer, working harder because you're inspired by others. But I think trying to be an exact mold of someone else can really hinder you, and I find it really painful, and it'll help you just be a little bit more gentle with yourself and more at peace.
I think that's so true. And I also think it relates to anyone as a human being, just kind of making sure that you nurture your own voice and who you are and how you can bring that to the table. And next we have Maria Kochakova talking about the bravery in being a young dancer and kind of standing up for yourself and making decisions that are going to help you further yourself artistically and as a person too.
I just wish that younger dancers had a bravery to give and go somewhere else, just to give it one more try, because this was my sort of experience. I've spent way too many years in the beginning of my career at English National Ballet, where I sort of became discouraged and sort of lost the path, and I didn't feel like I could go and audition anywhere else. And when I did, I straight from being so unhappy, I got a principal contract at San Francisco Ballet, and I just wish that more dancers had the courage and to go and to give it one more try, because we spent so many years training and pursuing our dream that they wouldn't give up so early, even if the first institution company is not the right place.
In this next clip, it's Misty Copeland, and she's answering a question from her podcast episode that Indy asked about what she does to help her feel better in her own skin when times are hard, when there's lots of thoughts spiraling and she wants to be grounded and feel better within herself. This piece of advice is amazing for anyone, dancer, person. It's a really good piece of information that both of us have utilized, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And specifically in this podcast interview, we were talking about how she gets out the jitters on stage and the self-doubt talk, as Sassy is saying. And I find it really cool because I always felt the opposite. I always didn't want to speak things into the universe because I didn't want to give it the power or the gravity to become a reality. And Misty talks about the opposite in this really wonderful piece of advice that I've started to take on and has changed my life, honestly.
The more I'm actually like speaking the words out, like in processing them, like the less weight they hold. All of the mentors in my life, whether it's, my husband has been key throughout my whole career, and just being able to like talk through things. I think the more that you kind of hold them in, they just like hold so much more importance and value than they should. It's like, just say all the things you're thinking, whether they're the insecurities you have, even just saying them out loud, it like kills it,
This is Lauren Lovett talking about something she would have loved to have done differently in her career.
If I could tell the listeners that there was something I wish I did differently, it would be to think about myself a whole lot less in the career. I've given myself grace, I've forgiven myself, I'm not like beating myself up about it anymore, but I think I could have had a whole lot more support. I think they are ready to support one another, but there has to be a window or a door opened first by the person who needs the help or needs the support or whatever. You have to crack, open a door first to be able to accept anything that comes your way, because otherwise it's all, people can sense it. They know that she's in her own world. Granted, I was so nervous. I felt like I couldn't even speak to people half the time, but people sense that. I wish I had done that differently.
For our final guest, we have Esteban Hernandez, who tells us a wonderful story of how he started his career.
And what ultimately led him to become a principal at San Francisco Ballet. So stay with him for his journey and learnings at the earliest days of his career. It's a really interesting story to close out this episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us for season 2 of the podcast. We have loved speaking to so many incredible guests and getting to come into your ears every Monday.
Yeah, it's been an absolute joy, and we cannot wait for season 3.
We can't wait. See you guys soon.
See you soon.
My name is Esteban Hernandez. I am a principal dancer with the San Francisco Ballet. I was asked to share some advice that I've received throughout my career that has sort of stuck with me. And actually, this advice came to me when I was still a student at the Royal Ballet School in London. I was in my second year. I was 17, turning 18, and I was very eager and desperate to sort of start my professional career. So about halfway through the year, I said to myself, "Okay, I'm done with school. I'm ready to be a professional. I want to be a professional." So I got this idea that I wanted to dance at the Mariinsky. I knew a teacher that taught at the Vaganova School. And so I reached out, and through him, we agreed that I would go to St. Petersburg for a week. And in that week, I would take classes at the Vaganova School as well as the Mariinsky by the end of the week. Throughout the 5 days that I was at the Vaganova, I think I did every possible classical variation that there has ever existed. After every class, we would do variations for an hour, 2 hours, for 2 hours daily. It was exhausting, but it was their way of sort of testing me before I was allowed to come take class at the Mariinsky. Eventually, the day came, and I was allowed to audition for the Mariinsky. I showed up. I did my class. The director at the time, Yuri Fateyev, came to watch the end of class. And then, as class finished, he came up to me and he said, "Can you do the Act 3 variation of Don Quixote, Basilio?" And the whole week I had been asked to do every variation, so I was like, "One more, yes, sure, why? I'll do it." So I did it in front of the company, in front of him, in front of everybody. And as I finished my variation, he came up to me and then he said, "Okay, now let's do the coda." Okay. So I did the coda. And after that, he was like, "Okay, let's go speak in my office." This was all in Russian. I didn't speak Russian, but I've been around enough Russian speaking teachers that I get the grasp of it, and especially within context. So anyway, once we arrived in his office, he started speaking to me in English, which was the first time anyone had spoken English to me the entire time that I was there. And he said, "Okay, I've been hearing this whole week that there is a Mexican boy at the Vaganova school that is better than all of the students in the graduating class." He said, "How could this be? I didn't believe it." So I sent Salutsky. He was a legendary teacher. I think he passed away recently, a couple of years ago. He taught people like Sarafanov, who I admire as a dancer. And so he taught one of the classes I took the very last day I was at the Vaganova. And that was sort of done to sort of give like a final stamp of approval before I was allowed to take class with the company. So he said, Fateyev said to me, I didn't believe it. So I sent Salutsky. He came back to me and he said the same thing. So today, after seeing you in class, I can say that it's true. What people have been saying is true. And so, I was jaw on the floor. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. I was so excited to hear such positive feedback. But then he looked at me and he said, "Okay, what was the first thing that you realized that you noticed when you came into the studio?" And I said, "Well, actually, my very first thought was that everybody is so tall." I'm 5'7", so I'm small. However, I mean, Baryshnikov was 5'7", so I digress. uh, but it was a fact that everybody, or the majority of the company, was extremely tall in comparison. So I said that, and he said, "Yes." And then he looked at me and he said, "I could offer you a job right now because I think you're good enough. You're more than good enough to be a part of this company. However, if I hire you right now, I am going to have to limit you." He said, "Don't get me wrong. I would give you opportunities to do, really good roles. Like you can do the Pas de Trois, you can do the Bronze Idol in Bayadere, all sorts of sort of like soloist roles that don't really involve dancing with anybody or very limited partnering." Because he said, "I don't have anyone that's small enough for you to dance with." But he said, "I don't want to hire you to limit you." He said, "You deserve the opportunity to do all of the roles." He said, "You've been your technique is more than good enough. Your ability, your capacity to do these things is there." So he said, "I think you're better off finding company that is going to be able to see that, appreciate that, and not limit you. Go find a company that is going to nurture your abilities and allow you to develop them in the way that you deserve to develop these abilities. So you don't deserve to be limited. You deserve to dance it all. However, here and right now is not the time for you." And he also looked at me and said, finish your training. Before you, he said, I understand eagerness and I understand wanting to get going and dance as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But he said, you've already put so much time into your training. You need to see it through. Graduate from school and then find a company that is going to give you what you need as a dancer. And honestly, I think that was the best thing that anyone could have said to me at that particular time, because I was so desperate and so eager to get going and to sort of just move on and grow up and do it all. That if I had done that, I would have missed out on so many of the things that I learned in my last year of training at the Royal Ballet School. And also, it was a really good reminder that I was on the right track. I was moving in the right direction, that what I wanted or hoped for in my career was possible. But the Mariinsky at that time was just not the place for me right there and then. Yeah. And so I carried that with me throughout my last year of training. And then eventually, when I received the job offer at San Francisco Ballet, I had to take it because it felt like the company could be that place for me.
Thank you for listening to the Grace Informed podcast. This episode was produced by Indiana Woodward, Megan Elsie McNally, and me, Saskia Gregson-Williams. If you're really loving the show, it would be wonderful if you take a moment to rate and review us. It helps other ballet lovers find our pod and lets us bring you even more episodes. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.
Have thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find us on all social media platforms as Grace and Form Studio. Drop us a message. If this episode has got you itching to move, oh, do we have the app for you. Download the Grace and Form app today and start your 7-day free trial. Whether you're a seasoned dancer or just starting out, there are ballet classes and dance-inspired workouts for everyone, no matter the level. Come join our community of dance lovers and experience the joy of movement for yourself. Again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take a deep breath in, be gentle with yourself, and always keep moving forward.